As we keep moving to the book of Ecclesiastes, today we find ourselves in Ecclesiastes chapter 9. And Ecclesiastes chapter 9 asks us some hard questions and reveals some hard truths. But as we get going, I want to start with this and ask you, do you have a bucket list? Now, I don't mean do you have a list of buckets. Do you have a bucket list? This is a list that you make before you kick the bucket, before you reach the end of your life. And for me, I think it's just kind of a fun, pointless, dumb thing to think about. What are some things you want to do before you die? Do you want to go bungee jumping before you die? Do you want to see the Grand Canyon? Do you want to go to the Antarctic? I do. There are things in your life that you want to do in your life, but you know you have a limited amount of time to do those things. Well, that's what Ecclesiastes chapter 9 is going to talk about. It's going to talk about our limited amount of time here on earth. You see, up to this point in Ecclesiastes, we've seen a couple things. We've seen that God is sovereign. God is in charge, and we can't tell God what to do. We also learned that believers and unbelievers, everybody, face uncertainty in life. We don't know what's coming around the corner. We don't know when our end's going to come. We don't know when sickness is going to come. We don't know when tragedy is going to enter our life, and we don't know when blessings are going to come. We don't know when fun things are about to happen. We can't predict the future. But Ecclesiastes chapter 9 is going to help us understand that the wise person gratefully lives all the days he or she is granted. All right, so let's read Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verses 1 through 3. And I want you to listen for some truths we learned about God and about us. Indeed, I took all this to heart and explained it all. The righteous, the wise, and their works are all in God's hands. People don't know whether to expect love or hate. Everything lies ahead of them. Everything is the same for everyone. There is one fate for the righteous and the wicked, for the good and the bad, for the clean and the unclean, for the one who sacrifices and the one who does not sacrifice. As it is for the good, so also it is for the sinner. As it is for the one who takes an oath, so also for the one who fears an oath. This is an evil in all that is done under the sun. There is one fate for everyone. In addition, the hearts of people are full of evil, and madness is in their hearts while they live. After that, they go to the dead. So like I said, we have two truths here. First, we have a truth about God, and that truth is that God is sovereign. God holds everything in his hands. He knows what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, and he makes things happen the way he wants them to happen. Now, Solomon says that we don't know whether we should expect love or hate. And he uses words here, love and hate. That sounds kind of weird, but he's talking about from God. Do we expect love or hate from God? And again, it's just the language he uses there really means, are we to expect blessings? Are we expect curses? Are we expecting good things? Are we to expect bad things in the future? He says that from God because God is sovereign. God's over everything. And Solomon just says, we don't know, and God does know. Look at Isaiah chapter 45, verses 5 through 6. I am the Lord, and there is no other. There is no God but me. I will strengthen you, though you do not know me, so that all may know from the rising of the sun to its setting that there is no one but me. I am the Lord, and there is no other. Solomon and Isaiah agree that God is sovereign. Isaiah says that God says that I am the only God. I'm the only Lord out there. I'm it. So Solomon and Isaiah agree that God knows our future. God knows what lies ahead of us, and we don't. And that brings us to our second point that we learned in these set of verses, that not only is God sovereign, but that we're going to die. It's a sober truth. It's the truth. It's the one thing we can't avoid in life. We're going to die. And that brings us to a question. I really want us to stop, and I want us to consider this morning. Look at your personal study guide, if you've got it, on page 112, and look at this question. Why are people, unbelievers and believers, reluctant to think about their mortality and what they should do to prepare properly for death? Now, we don't like to think about death. I mean, why would you want to? It's not a happy thing. It's a sad time, especially when someone passes away unexpectedly. And it can be a painful time when someone suffers leading into death, going into death. And so we really don't want to think about it. But Solomon tells us we need to be prepared for the inevitable, prepared for what's going to happen to us, because it's going to happen. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 20. But as it is, Christ has been raised from the dead, the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. For since death came through a man, the resurrection of the dead also comes through a man. For just as Adam all die, so also in Christ all have been made alive. So Paul and Solomon agree that death is inevitable. For all men who are born in Adam, that's all of us, we are all in Adam, we die. We die because of sin, because of our sinfulness and because of the sin in the world. It's a truth that both Solomon and Paul agree on. But Paul, on this side of the cross, has a fuller picture of the situation. He says that those in Christ have been made alive. You see, Paul understands there's a resurrection coming. Paul understands that in life we can live looking toward that resurrection. Solomon can't see that, but Solomon says life is drudgery sometimes, and Paul says it can be, but we have a resurrection to look forward to. I want us to consider a question here. Look here at this question. How does hope in Christ make a person grateful for each day of life? Our life in Christ is a life filled with purpose. It's a life that can be filled with joy. It's a life that's filled being led by the Spirit. Our life in Christ can be a hope-filled life, looking not just toward death, but to the resurrection that comes after death. And I think we can see here in these passages that all people must prepare for their death. Let's look now at these next set of verses and see not just the sober reality that death is going to happen to us, but the fact that we can seek life even though death is going to be coming in the end. Look here at Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verses 4 through 6. But there is hope for whoever is joined with all the living, since a live dog is better than a dead lion. For the living know that they will die, but the dead don't know anything. There is no longer a reward for them because the memory of them is forgotten. Their love, their hate, their envy, all have already disappeared, and there is no longer a portion for them in all that is done under the sun. Now in Solomon's day, the dog was not the fluffy little pet that you would let get up on your couch and sleeps on the end of your bed, and that you take to the vet, spend hundreds of dollars on, and buy gourmet food for, and feed out of a nice ceramic bowl. Those weren't the dogs of Solomon's day. Those were the days when a dog was a pest. He was a nuisance. He was a scrounger. He would come around. He would try and get stuff, and he would yap at you and do this. It wasn't a pet. It was a scrounging menace. It was a pest. In Solomon's day, though, a lion. Now, those weren't pets either, but they were a majestic animal that you would see up maybe on the hills or out in the wild. And they were majestic animals. But Solomon says, a living dog, a living pest, a living nuisance, this scrounger thing that's alive is better than a dead, majestic lion. Because the dog at least can get to live, and a lion still, he can't do that. So Solomon says that in life, it's better to be alive, even if your life isn't some great, majestic thing. It's better to be alive than it is to be dead. Now again, Solomon didn't have understanding of this side of the cross. He didn't understand what Paul understood. But Paul might encourage us. He might guide us to say, look, to be alive, no matter how miserable it can be at times, we have a hope. We can look to the future and look to a resurrection. And while we're alive, we can live a worthwhile life. We can live a life that has meaning, a life that has purpose, a life that does something for the kingdom, does something to make other people's lives better. Take a moment and consider this question. How might the certainty of death and the truth of Jesus' resurrection change the way we share the gospel and do the work of the kingdom? Now, Solomon's not trying to get us down. Solomon's not saying, oh, woe is us to know that death is coming. Solomon's saying death is coming, so let's live life. And Paul encourages us to live a worthwhile life, a life that builds the kingdom. Y'all, we've only got so long in this life, and other people only have so long to hear the gospel. And so we should be encouraged to do what we can to share the gospel, do what we can to build God's kingdom, do what we can to build God's worldwide church, and do our part in that. Don't say, oh, but I'll do that at another time, or I've got time for that later. We don't know how much time we have. We don't know how much time other people have either. So I want to encourage us that believers can live with hope and purpose, knowing that Christ defeated death through his resurrection. Solomon's not trying to get us down. Solomon's not trying to get us to be upset that death is coming. Solomon's saying death is out there, so live life now. Paul is saying that death is coming and the resurrection after that. So let's do what we can to live a worthwhile life now so that we can bring more people into that resurrection in the end. So let's look now. Let's look at our next set of verses, and let's see what Solomon else has to teach us. Verses 7 through 10. Go, eat your bread with pleasure, and drink your wine with cheerful heart, for God has already accepted your work. Let your clothes be white all the time, and never let oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with your wife, and love all the days of your fleeting life, which has been given to you under the sun, all your fleeting days. For that is your portion in life, and in your struggle under the sun. Whatever your hands find to do, do with all your strength, because there is no work, planning, knowledge, or wisdom in Sheol where you're going. Solomon says, enjoy life. Enjoy it while you can. And he tells us 4 ways to do that. First, he says, enjoy life in your eating and your drinking. He says, don't abstain from food just because it's there, just because it can make you happy and bring joy to you. He says, go eat. Go have fun. If you want to bring this in the 21st century, it could be hang out with people you like. Go do fun stuff with them. Go have a good time in life. There's nothing wrong with having a good time. Enjoy what God brings your way. He says next, enjoy life in your demeanor, or demonstrate your love for life through your demeanor. He says, put on your going outside clothes, those robes are the white robes that he talks about that keep the sun from scorching people in the Middle East. He says, put on your going outside robes. Don't sit in the house and mourn and be sad all the time just because life can be hard at times. He says, go out, enjoy life. Then he says, enjoy life with your family. He says here specifically, enjoy life with your wife, but he really we can expand that to enjoy life with your family. Do stuff with your family. Make memories. Have a good time. Take your kids to work. You might not be able to afford a big fancy vacation, but take your kids to the park. Take your kids out to a local state park and just spend some time with them outside. Take your kids to the movies. Take your kids and just go to town and do something fun with them. And spend time with your wife. Take your wife on a date. Go with your husband and go shopping with him in places that he's going to enjoy and do things like that. Make time for your family and enjoy life with them. Enjoy life in what you do with your friends. Enjoy life in the way you live through your demeanor. Enjoy life with your family. And lastly, he says, enjoy life through your work. He says, if you've got work, go do it. Do it all you got. Do it with everything you have. And it's not just your work you get paid for, but it's your hobbies. It's things you do in the community. Do it and enjoy it. Have fun in life. Enjoy your life, because Solomon says one day the end's coming. And we know that's true. And Paul says one day the end's coming and there's a resurrection after. But right now, this life's what we got. A few weeks ago, we talked about don't avoid a life. Don't avoid the situations you're in. Look around and say, this is where I am now, and enjoy that. Don't get bogged down in the fact that death is going to come in the end. I think we can see that God intends us to enjoy the blessings of life He has given us in acknowledgement of Him. I want you to consider this question. How does enjoying the blessings of life honor God? Enjoying the blessings of life honors God because God has changed us. As believers, He's changed the way we see our family, the way we see our friends, the way we see our work, the way we see the world. He's changed that, and we change the way we see that, and when we enjoy that life, He is honored through that. We enjoy life in Him. He receives the honor. We can learn in these passages that believers should treat life as a precious gift, making the most of their lives for Christ's glory. In this session, Solomon has reminded us of a somber truth. It is true that we're all going to die. We've also learned from Paul that there's a resurrection that takes place after that. But in between, before that happens, before the death comes, and right now, between that time, we should live life. We should enjoy life. We should honor the Lord with our lives, and we should really just use our life to grow His kingdom and to honor Him and bring glory to Him. But James has something to teach us as well. Look here at James chapter 4. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we would travel to such and such a city and spend a year there and do business and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring, what your life will be. For you are like a vapor that appears for a little while, then vanishes. Instead, you should say, if the Lord wills, we will live and do this or that. So that's my challenge for you this week. Go out in life and say, Lord, what do you will? What do you want from me this week? How can I enjoy life? How can I work and enjoy that in you? How can I serve you? How can I grow your kingdom this week? We want to challenge you in light of the fact that we have a short period of time. Even though the resurrection is out there, we only have this time in this life to bring glory and honor to the Lord. I want to challenge you to talk to Him this week and find out how you can do that this week. I'll see you next week as we sum up the book of Ecclesiastes.